Hello, welcome to this Silverstripe screencast. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to deal with files and images in Silverstripe. So first, we'll do a general overview of how Silverstripe handles files. And then we'll talk about the has1 variable, which is another database variable that we'll be using. Then we'll add upload fields to the CMS interface. And we'll bring in the files to the template. And then before we bring the images into the template, we'll go over how image resampling in Silverstripe works. And lastly, we'll bring in the images to the template. So in the previous lesson, we started adding some basic custom fields to our article pages. We'll now continue working on those pages and get them more integrated with the CMS by allowing the user to attach files and images to them. So let's take a quick look at the gaps we're trying to close here. First, we see that the list view of the articles has a small image on the left that ostensibly represents a photo that is associated with the article. On the detail view, it's a larger photo. The design doesn't explicitly dictate whether these are different images or just the same image sized differently. But for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to assume that the user has to only upload one image. The client has also informed us that he sometimes wants to add a PDF attachment to his articles in the form of a travel brochure, so we'll need to make that provision in the CMS as well. So let's go over some common approaches of how to do file storage against database records. If you've ever used a web application framework before, you may have a few ideas about how files can be persisted to database records. So let's go over a few common approaches. First of all, you might save a local path to a text field on the record. This solution scores a lot of points for its simplicity, but it has serious shortcomings in its longevity. If the file ever moves to a different place, you'll have to backfill the records that refer to the file with a new path. Otherwise, they'll break, and so that makes this solution particularly fragile. Another thing you might do is upload the file to a CDN and save an absolute URI to a text field on the record. And this is a really scalable solution because it leverages nearly infinite storage limits of cloud hosting. Also, cloud-hosted files tend to be pretty robust and permanent, so they're unlikely to change their name. So it has better syncing issues than the first solution. But pulling down the file remotely hampers our ability to manipulate it because we're working over HTTP rather than the local file system. Another common solution is a blob field. Blobs are a special type of database field that store arbitrary binary data, which makes them a great candidate for persisting files because for all intents and purposes, you'd be uploading a file directly into the database. So this approach has none of the syncing issues that you have with a file system, which makes it fairly reliable. The downside is that you can very quickly bloat your database, and it presents a poor separation of concerns. Your database can quickly become repurposed as a de facto file server if you're not judicious about how much you're storing in it. So all these techniques make sense in certain contexts, but a framework tries to serve a broad range of implementations, and Silverstripe therefore chooses its own flavor of file storage that balances ease of use, reliability, and scalability. So how are we going to do file storage? Well, in Silverstripe, syncing the database with the file system is an accepted cost. It's tedious and problematic at times, but it's just kind of the way it is, and rather than trying to get rid of that cost altogether, we try to minimize it. To do that, Silverstripe provides a file object with its own table in the database. This table essentially keeps a ledger of all the files in the file system, at least the portion of the file system that is exposed to the end user, and the responsibility of keeping it in sync is left entirely to these file records. So any pages or other types of database content that rely on files do not have to worry about this problem. Instead, all they need to store is the ID of the file they need. An ID, as you might know, is considered immutable in the database world, and therefore, no matter what happens to the file, whether it moves, changes its name, or gets replaced, the page doesn't need to be informed of that problem. It retains the ID of the file, and it can acquire all of the metadata of that file whenever it needs to. This doesn't mean that the overhead of syncing two disparate systems is mitigated by any means. If you were to, say, FTP a bunch of files directly to the server, the file table would not be informed of those changes, and it's therefore necessary to run a task from time to time to force the database to sync with the file system. You'll notice in the CMS, under the Files section, there's a Sync Files button. If you ever do any direct management of the file system on your server, be sure to run this task. Let's now talk about the has1 variable in our pages. So far, we've been talking about fields that are native to the page type, like author, date, and teaser. Those are all stored in the article page table, which means they go in the DB array. Sometimes, however, fields are stored on a foreign table. and all the native table needs is a reference to the ID of the foreign record. To relate a page type to a foreign object, you might think all you need to do is store a field in the DB array cast as an integer and just place the ID in there. That's an option, but it's much more clean to set that up as a foreign key so that both the database and Silverstripe framework will know how to handle it properly. Let's create a new private static array in the article page class called has1. This works much like the DB array, only instead of mapping field names to field types, we'll map them to a class name or table name of the related object. Let's call our image field photo and our file field brochure. Notice that image has its own class. Appropriately, it's a subclass of file, but it offers its own special set of features, particularly around resizing and resampling. Let's run dev build and notice that there's some new fields that are created. They take on the names photo ID and brochure ID. Silverstripe automatically appends ID to any has1 field. After all, the only thing that will be stored there is the ID of the foreign record. Now let's add some upload functionality to our getCMS fields function. For file relations, upload field is the best choice. For tidiness, we'll put the uploaders in their own tab. Now let's log into the CMS and try uploading a few files. We'll save the record and we'll see that the fields hold their state. Now this works well, but we can tighten it up a bit. First of all, giving a written indication of the file type that we're expecting, which is a PDF, that's good, but it would be better if we could actually enforce that constraint. After all, we should always expect that if it can be broken, a user will break it. So for this, we'll tap into the upload fields validator. And we'll invoke the method setAllowedExtensions. Now notice that we can use the shortcut of concurrently adding a field to the tab and assigning it to a variable. This technique is often used when making updates to form fields after they're instantiated. It just saves you a line of code. Now when we try to upload anything but a PDF to the brochure field, it refuses it and it throws an error. The second thing is it would be nice if the uploader put all the files in a folder of our choosing. By default, everything's going to end up in assets/uploads, and that directory can become quite polluted if you don't stay on top of configuring your upload directories. We can use set folder name on the upload field to assign a folder relative to the assets directory, and that's the directory in your project root that is supposed to be writable by the web server, so that's where all your uploads go. If the folder doesn't exist, it will be created. So if you specify a series of folders that are all separated by slashes, it will go ahead and create all those directories and their hierarchical structure. Let's try uploading a new file, and we'll see that it goes to the appropriate place. Now let's start bringing the files into the template. Because we declared the file relation as has1, we can access all of the properties of the file record just as if it's a native field. Silverstripe will automatically handle all of the querying for us. Let's make an update to articlepage.ss to show a download button for the brochure, if one exists. Calling the property brochure as defined in our has1 gets us a file object with its own set of properties. We'll display some of them, but there are many others made available to you, including file name, title, and more. Let's reload the page and give it a test. You should now be able to download the PDF you attached. Let's introduce a new concept really quickly called the with block. This file download works great, but we can clean up the template syntax. There are multiple references to properties that we're getting by traversing the brochure object. So we see brochure.url, brochure.extension, brochure.size. We can remove all that dot-separated syntax by wrapping the whole thing in a scope block known as with. When you're in a with block, all the properties refer to the subject of that with block. So it's a way of changing the scope. While there's little, if any, performance gain to this approach, some may find it easier to read, and some developers may make more use of scope operators than others. Generally speaking, the more properties you're getting off of an object, the more utility you'll get out of a with block. If you're just getting a couple of fields, it might not make too much sense, but if there's a lot, and in this case there are a few, we might want to use one. Let's get into some image resampling now. You might have noticed that we've only chosen to use a single upload field for what appears to be two different photo sizes, a small one in list view and a larger one in detail view. This is because when dealing with images, we're only concerned about distinct content. The sizing and resampling of the photos is done on page load through function calls on the template, effectively giving you an unlimited number of sizes and formats for any given image. Now, if you're even remotely concerned about page optimization, the very thought of resampling images on page load is probably turning your stomach, and I can understand why. Fortunately, as we'll see in a moment, it's not quite that simple. So, given the image field photo, we can simply invoke $photo to create an image tag for the photo as it was uploaded in its raw form. Generally speaking, you want to avoid this, as in most use cases, images can be layout breaking, and we don't want to blindly trust what a CMS user uploaded, maybe a 5 megabyte JPEG, for instance. If we invoke an image resampling function against the photo, we can get the same image tag, only a new version of the image to the size of our choice. The following syntax will show the photo at a width of 600 pixels with unconstrained height reduced proportionately. Does this seem like a lot of overhead to add to your templates? Well, most of the time it's almost nothing. Here's how it works. Silverstripe generates a SKU for the resampled image based on the original file name, the resampling method, and the arguments passed to it. For example, given the file name photo.jpg, the above function will generate an image like this. To avoid collisions and to simplify cleanup, all resampled images are placed in a _resampled directory off the directory that contains the source image. So in our case, the full path to this image would be assets/travel photos /_resampled /setWidth100-photo.jpg. Now when the setWidth method is called, Silverstripe generates the file name and checks to see if it exists. If it does, it renders the existing image. If it doesn't, it creates it and returns a path to the new file. Either way, you still get your image tag and the resampling is transparent to you. The benefit of this approach is that it's fantastically simple and declarative, but the downside of declarative programming is that it often obscures the developer from what's really happening under the hood. In some cases, the developer should be aware that the first page load after adding or modifying a resizing function will always be slower than subsequent page loads. How much slower depends on how many images you have. Most of the time you'll never notice. But it's important to be aware that if you're rendering a lot of new photos, say 10 or more, you probably want to hit the page once to ensure that all those photos get cached. It's never a good idea to put hundreds of new photos on a page and attempt to resample them all in a single page load, as you're likely to time out the PHP process. There are many image resampling functions that ship with a default install of Silverstripe. It's also very easy to create your own, which we'll cover in another tutorial, but here are a few common methods you might find useful. There's image setWidth, which will reduce the image size proportionally given a width. There's setHeight, which does the same thing, only it constrains to the height, not the width. SetSize will force it to be a certain size and add padding if necessary. So if one dimension comes in a little short of what you want, it'll just add some black space or white space. Cropped image is a really good one because it will resize it as best it can to the width and height you want, and whatever doesn't fit, it will crop from the center. Let's add some images to the template. This should be pretty straightforward now that we understand how all this works. On articleholder.ss, we see that the photos in list view are about 242 by 156 pixels. Let's use cropped image for these because it's more important that they maintain a uniform size than it is to show all of their content. People will see all the content on the detail view. On articlepage.ss, the photo is larger, and again, we want to show all the content, so let's use setWidth 750 for this one. Let's reload the page and we'll see that the images are displaying correctly. Let's talk about customizing the image tag. Now this is something you may or may not want to do depending on your design constraints if you need to modify the attributes of the image tag. As we've stated in previous lessons, the situations in Silverstripe where you do not have full control over your HTML are few and far between. Generally speaking, you always have control over what HTML comes out. Image tags are no exception to this. Let's imagine that we need to add a custom class name to our image tag. Right now, the setWidth and cropped image functions are outputting an entire string of HTML, so we have no control over that. The good news is that these methods actually don't return strings of text. They actually give us an image object that contains all the properties we would expect to have, such as $URL, $extension, $size, and also anything we would expect an image to have, such as $width, $height. Let's rewrite those template variables to output custom HTML. So we say setWidth750.url, setWidth750.width, etc. And lastly, we can just add a custom class. We'll go back to the browser and just make sure that's working. We do see that the custom class has been added, so that's good. Now getting back to the template, this gets a bit unwieldy. It's just a lot of syntax here. So let's revisit that with block that we used earlier to clean things up a bit. We'll just use with photo.setWidth750. And now everything is scoped to that object. So we just have to say $URL, $width, $height, and we can retain that custom class we need. Okay, that's all for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.